So in looking at skeletal muscle fiber types, the color is red versus white, and if you look at the light microscope image at the bottom, there are dark fibers, those are considered the red. There are white fibers, that's the one labeled fast glycolytic fiber that looks white, and there's a middle color called a pink one. So they actually differ in color, and this has to do with the amounts of myoglobin, which contains oxygen, capillary perfusion, and mitochondria, which obviously has to do with the amount of oxygen that the fibers need. So there are three types of muscle fibers. There are slow oxidative fibers, which you can see are the dark colored, the fast glycolytic, which are the light colored, and fast oxidative glycolytic fibers, which are the pink, which are somewhere in the middle. So the darker the fiber, the more that these are going to be able to perform oxidative cellular respiration or aerobic cellular respiration that is required to do exercise over 2 minutes. So they will require more myoglobin, capillary perfusion to bring in oxygen and nutrients, and mitochondria. They also differ in how fast the ATPase on the myosin heads hydrolyzes ATP for the cross-bridge cycle. There are slow myosin heads, like we see in slow oxidative fibers, and fast myosin heads for fast glycolytic fibers. So this chart will summarize each type. You'll see the slow oxidative or SO fibers, fast oxidative glycolytic fibers or FOG, and fast glycolytic fibers. And you can see in their structure, their color relates to their myoglobin content, mitochondria, and capillaries. So the oxidative are going to have the most of those. Fast oxidative glycolytic have many, and fast glycolytic refer to glycolysis. So these rely on glycolysis. So these are going to be more fast twitch fibers and things that are used for quick movements that are very powerful, but not really long-term movements. So we can see the slow oxidative fibers, their primary function are maintaining posture in aerobic endurance activities. Fast oxidative glycolytic fibers are walking and sprinting type movements. Fast glycolytic are for rapid, intense movements or short duration movements. So we'll see some examples of those. So slow oxidative fibers use aerobic respiration. Fast oxidative glycolytic are special because they can use both aerobic respiration and anaerobic glycolysis. Fast glycolytic primarily use anaerobic glycolysis. So we can see the need for those ATPase heads as well. If we're doing something long distance like slow oxidative, we wouldn't need that fast ATPase. But we would need that fast ATPase for fast oxidative glycolytic and fast glycolytic. So, a couple examples. You begin training in January, and in May, you are able to compete in your first half marathon. What muscle fiber type are you most heavily reliant on during this activity? And after each of these, you may want to pause your video, answer to yourself, and explain why, then restart. So, this would rely on slow oxidative because we are talking about long distance where we're doing a half marathon. There can be some conversion between fast glycolytic and fast oxidative glycolytic, but you can't really convert between fast glycolytic and slow oxidative. So you might have some changes between fast glycolytic to fast oxidative glycolytic, training some of those fast twitch glycolytic fibers to be more oxidative, but this is going to rely primarily on a lot of your slow oxidative that you have. So the slow oxidative to fast glycolytic are pretty genetically determined. But again, you can, through specific types of training, convert some fast oxidative glycolytic to fast glycolytic and vice versa. What fiber type is this shot putter most heavily reliant on? You can pause the video and answer that. This is a very intense quick movement, so this would rely more on fast glycolytic. It's more on intense power, not on sustained contraction. And when your muscles hypertrophy and they're getting larger, like the muscles you see in the shot putter here, the person is primarily working those fast glycolytic fibers and making those hypertrophy. Your daughter enjoys running up and down the field and especially using the occasional good swift kick to score a goal. What fiber type is she primarily reliant on? You might have many answers here. You look a lot at fast oxidative glycolytic because she's looking at some sprints. She's also looking at some very intense kicks for the soccer ball. So she's looking for fast ATPase, but also some sustaining with the fast oxidative glycolytic. Katie begins going to the gym and sets up a weekly training schedule alternating jogging and swimming. It is difficult at first, but she soon is able to do both activities for much longer than she could when she began training. What changes have occurred in her muscle? As we talked about before, a lot of your slow oxidative to fast glycolytic are genetically determined, but you can convert between fast glycolytic and fast oxidative glycolytic. As they go through more endurance training like Katie is doing here, your fast glycolytic can be converted some to fast oxidative glycolytic because you're going to develop more capillary perfusion, more mitochondria, more endurance type things. She may also have some muscle hypertrophy as she uses some of those muscles for things like swimming. Joe works out in the weight room weekly, which is responsible for the progressively visible surface anatomy in his skeletal muscles. Explain the changes that occur. Here he is using primarily fast glycolytic with a lot of this weightlifting, and he is having what is called hypertrophy of the muscle fibers. You do not add more muscle cells or muscle fibers because those are set, but you can add more contractile proteins, thus hypertrophying or making larger the individual muscle fibers in those fast glycolytic. So again, hypertrophy is an enlargement of existing muscle fibers, not adding muscle fibers. It increases the myofibrils, sarcoplasmic reticula, mitochondria, and other cellular materials. Since they contain more myofibrils, they are capable of a more forceful contraction. Muscle atrophy is the opposite. This is a decrease in the size of the muscle fibers due to a decline in myofibrils. And atrophy can happen as you don't have use in muscles. This especially happens if there's been disruptive nerve supply. Marianne wants to lose weight and decides that she will do this by an intense aerobic regimen. In order to get to the goal of weight loss on her very busy schedule, she wishes to forego strength training and focus only on running. Will strength training benefit her? So if we look at weight loss, lots of cardio can cause fat loss, weight loss, but strength training will ensure that she keeps muscle, which is desirable because we tend to want to lose fat and not muscle when we are doing some weight loss. And it will also prevent injury. Again, on a tight schedule, Marianne decides that she wishes to focus more on getting in as much aerobic activity during her lunch break as possible, so forgoes stretching. Is stretching a good idea? Why? And when is the best time to stretch? So stretching makes sure that those connective tissues and tendons that attach the muscle to the bone are limber and prevents injury. It is better to do warm stretching because cold stretching can cause tearing and straining of those tissues. So it's best time to do it after a warm-up. So as we saw, those low oxidative and fast oxidative glycolytic fibers increase the supply of oxygen-rich blood for aerobic respiration. They're good for aerobic exercise. You're talking about endurance, such as jogging, aerobic dancing, many other examples there. Those fast glycolytic fibers are more reliant on ATP production through glycolysis, so this would be more anaerobic training. Over time, this fast glycolytic working of anaerobic causes hypertrophy or increase in size, like we see in quick sprints and weightlifting. Anabolic steroids, these are not the types of steroids that we see particularly when we talk about adrenal cortex types hormones, as we've talked about with the endocrine system. You do create testosterone in the body, and anabolic hormones are similar to testosterone. And what they do is they act similarly to how the potent form of testosterone works when they're injected by increasing the synthesis of proteins. Thus, it increases hypertrophy and strength training during anaerobic exercises. The problem with anabolic steroids is that it's found that you have to have very large doses of these anabolic steroids like testosterone to produce the effects of the hypertrophy muscles. And those high doses can also have consequences like liver cancer, mood swings, we've heard of roid rage, stunted growth, kidney damage, heart disease, aggression, inability, infertility, and many other types of things.